Welcome to our third video on Abstract's growth strategy, and we're going to dive deep into their ecosystem strategy. So what makes a blockchain really thrive is its ecosystem of builders and the apps they build, because that's what ultimately attracts users. Abstract knew this, so they didn't just scale users, but they also scaled builders. Let's dive into their playbook. When Abstract launched, they didn't launch with an empty chain. They launched with a theme park of apps, tons of different applications that you could go and test out. So when you log into your Abstract portal, you can see these spotlight apps. You can go down and actually explore a ton of different trading, social apps. So there's just a ton of different things you can do on Abstract. So this allows you to go and actually play around with the ecosystem. So this allows users to actually have apps that they can engage with that they like and to create actual user retention. Now combine that with their XP strategy, and that's why they've been really able to keep getting people back and really improve retention. They had games, they had NFT collections, DeFi protocols, marketplaces, all of that live on mainnet. Now, this wasn't luck, right? Abstract had a specific strategy with this. And one of their core pieces was they had this builder in residence program. They seeded early developers with this builder in residence program where they provided monthly stipends so developers could build. They provided mentorship and marketing spotlights. And they chose the right kind of apps. Instead of looking for applications that are basically take forever to build, they looked for quick to build, easy and interesting apps that people actually want to play with. So that's the crazy thing about crypto. A lot of teams raise a ton of venture funding and try to build a super polished product, when in reality, I think you'll get a lot more traction out of building quicker apps, testing them in the market, seeing if they work, and if something does work, go out and scale it, right? There are obviously products that require a lot more time, but Abstract realized that to be able to build an ecosystem quickly, they more so focused on apps that were relatively easier to build and easier to deploy. Now, they do obviously have more flagship or bigger products as well, but if you look at the ecosystem they have a lot of cool things like Gigoverse and other games that are more so crypto degen style games that aren't necessarily like extremely high production value, but they are really fun and they really have that crypto degen factor. And let's not forget that Abstract also had a large community thanks to both their Pengu launch as well as the general success of Pudgy Penguins that they could put to bear on these apps, right? So the fact that these app builders knew they had an audience kind of built in allowed them to really go and build on Abstract without fear. I also think that a lot of these builders, if they had gone to other chains, would have probably wanted grants because of the fact that these other chains don't really have distribution to offer, while with Abstract, I think just the distribution itself is very valuable. So Abstract does have more leverage in bringing on great builders and not necessarily having to shell out huge amounts of cash. Now, the second piece is that they really leveraged partnerships with great brands and great ecosystems to also increase reach and better bolster kind of their product offering, right? So for example, a great example of Abstract's great BD is Magic Eden. So they partnered up with Magic Eden and they've been doing a lot of co-marketing. As you can see, you can trade all the Abstract NFT collections on Magic Eden. So it's pretty cool, right? Like they basically have a lot of co-marketing coming in from ME, and also they're helping them out in return as well. Now, what's really interesting, because the Magic Eden partnership, I think, is more of a, I guess, like NFT partnership. It's not anything mind-blowing. What's really interesting is one of the projects that's building on Abstract and is closely partnered with Abstract, Mirrored Markets, actually has partnered up with Decrypt Media to bring prediction market into news content. So what that means is you can go read news content and you'll actually have these basically prediction market kind of like predictions that you can bet on. So Mirrored Markets is basically a prediction market, so you can bet yes, no on whether Satoshi's wealth will be above 150 billion at end of September. And it's like embedded into very relevant news articles, right? I'm not sure exactly how much of a role Abstract had to play in that specific partnership, but the fact that, you know, a project on their chain is doing that and they're getting, you know, since Mirrored's on Abstract, it's bringing a lot of attention to Abstract itself. I think that's just great news, and I'm sure they had some part to play in this. Now, a big partnership that Abstract directly made happen was Modhaus. Modhaus is a K-pop agency. Their app Cosmos is basically where you can collect digital photo cards vote for idols, etc., brought 266,000 users on chain. And these people are using Modhaus without even knowing it's powered by crypto, right? It's like very much a seamless user experience. And that's kind of the big thing here, because Abstract is so focused on user experience and making sure onboarding is as smooth as possible. That actually gives them a shot at onboarding like top consumer products that are not in the crypto space, right? So they've been able to bring this Web 2 brand onto Web 3 thanks to that. And that's a big one. You know, K-pop's pretty big. So these kind of partnerships are pipelines to mainstream audiences who don't really care about crypto. And I'm sure we'll see a ton of that. I mean, they've done it with Pudgy Penguins. They're going to do it over with Abstract. And obviously, Abstract's going to power all of these Pudgy experiences and Pudgy infrastructure. So scaling also means making sure builders win. And Abstract has done a great job of this. So there's been multiple projects that have generated over $1 million revenue in a single month, right? And the vast majority of them did it without any venture funding or with small seed rounds, right? So they've been spotlighting the success, which adds more FOMO to other builders who are like, why am I building on this random chain? Gigoverse, for example, sold over $1.2 million in Giga Juice, which is an in-game power-up. And when other builders see these kind of numbers in Abstract, they get FOMO. They want to build on Abstract. It attracts more and more quality builders, and that's how an ecosystem wins. A lot of other chains don't even mention the apps on their chain that are doing well, and they don't spotlight revenue. They don't spotlight how well they're winning. A lot of chains are even like their ecosystem leads are basically ignore most of the builders in the chain, right? Like they're barely able to get attention. So I think Abstract's doing something different by really being builder friendly here. It's not that they only just spotlight it. They've also made this happen, because the whole reason these apps are generating $1 million plus in revenue is that Abstract has done a great job with their XP system, where essentially you can earn XP by spending in-game with these different apps. So the more you're kind of like using these apps, the more XP you're gaining. And that's the kind of flywheel that really drives a lot of revenue to these projects, right? In fact, apps on Abstract have in total generated over $25 million in revenue just through the apps themselves. They really thought about this. Clearly, their XP system was designed to help bootstrap a lot of this revenue. And I do think, you know, post TGE, they will continue to still have like great revenue for these apps as people will continue to use them. And, you know, obviously, it's just that right now with people farming the Abstract airdrop, I think it's just creating this massive growth incentive, right? Some might say, hey, you're using incentives, you're using this XP system. What about post TGE? Well, look at Hyperliquid. It's continued to do extremely well post TGE. There'll be new projects for people to come in and deploy their capital. Existing projects will have innovations. So if you actually have a strong ecosystem and there's a reason to go and use your chain, there's interesting yield opportunities, there's interesting launchpad opportunities, people will continue to use it. For example, with Base, I don't think there's really any plans for Base token. Maybe there is, maybe there's not, but nobody's using Base because they're trying to farm Base, right? It's just there's a lot of opportunities on Base. So yes, they are bootstrapping the ecosystem through this XP points system, which will attract a lot of mercenary capital, but a lot of that capital will stay around, right? So ultimately, I do think these kind of XP programs can be really good, and it's obviously working well with Abstract. People are spending more generously in-game because they are both farming like the game tokens as well as Abstract's potential token. Now, what's also interesting about Abstract is they have this panoramic governance model, which will let the community direct token incentives to the most used apps. So it's almost like these curve wars that you had last cycle. This means that builders aren't just chasing VC money. You'll have certain amounts of emissions going to the best and most popular apps in the ecosystem. So what are the results, right? During the first half of 2025, they've had millions of wallets, right? I think 2 million was a number I recently saw. 60 million plus transactions processed. I think somewhere like TVL of 200 million. These aren't just vanity stats. They show Abstract created real user and builder activity before even launching a token. They've actually been crushing it. So the big lessons here is you want to make sure you have great apps lined up before launch. Make sure you have a user journey in mind. Make sure your onboarding is top tier and there's no clunkiness, there's no awkwardness. Maybe set up some, gas, like basically paymaster, so people get some gas when they bridge into the ecosystem. Ensure that you have partnerships set up with large brands and consumer applications. That's obviously important. Like, I think Abstract's done great with getting Modhaus up, Myriad Markets and their Decrypt partnerships, also awesome. So these are more like consumer crypto use cases. So make sure you have those lined up. You want to really support builders and give them something that's appealing. Don't just make it pure cash. I think this combination of mentorship, a stipend, maybe even flying them out to a house where you can build together, all of that are great ways to do it. And then the last piece is the right incentive systems can really help bootstrap your ecosystem. We saw that with Hyperliquid. We're seeing that with Abstract. If you do it right, you can build a really strong ecosystem. Just be careful with incentives because sometimes it can lead to muddying of noise and signal, but I don't think the Abstract team will really fall to that. They're top tier builders. So looking forward to see what they continue to build. And thanks for watching the video, guys. This video is brought to you by Crescendo, which is my marketing agency. Work with top teams like Aether, Movari, Beamable, many others. Feel free to reach out to us if you want to chat marketing. I'll see you in the next video.